How's it going? Adam Drake here, and today I'm going to show you how I shim my Nitro clutch. So I'll show kind of a variance of what it looks like if there's too much end play, not enough, and also the proper shimming. So these techniques can be used with any brand of engine and also any brand of clutch. So the shimming may be different. What I'm going to show you is on an OS Speed B21 Adam Drake 3 Nitro engine using the ProTech 4-shoe clutch. But you'll be able to, again, use these techniques whether it's an old school 3-shoe clutch or basically any of the 4-shoe clutches that are on the market. So let's get to it. I'll go ahead and show you a closer look and we'll go through the steps that I do to shim my Nitro clutch. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and take apart and kind of work backwards. This is an engine that I had built up that I was getting ready to break in, and it had a properly shimmed clutch, but I'm going to, again, kind of work my way backwards and show you what things to look for. Now with the clutch shims, pretty much all the manufacturers make the shims, Mugen, ProTech, all the different chassis brands. Basically it's just a 5 by 10 millimeter shim, and they come in a few different sizes. The most common is a 0.2 millimeter shim. You can also use 0.1 and 0.3 millimeter shims. I usually just try to use the 0.2 millimeter shims. The 0.1s are so thin that they tend to break. So I like to stay away from those. The 0.3s are fine. It's just sometimes you end up with like the end play a little bit in between. So that's where the 0.3s can come in handy. But what you'll want to do is I'm going to first show you, so with no shims behind the inner bearing, when we put that on, so there's no shims inside or outside. When you slide the bell on, you can kind of hear that little bit of rubbing. And if you take and push the bell, you can feel that the bell is actually hitting the flywheel. So with some clutches, the bell won't hit the flywheel, but the bell may hit the flywheel pins. So that's bad. So this can cause your engine to stop. If you got to think about it as if, like after a race, when you go to shut your engine off, it doesn't take much to stop the flywheel. Just a quick, hit of the flywheel from your finger, the engine shuts off. So if this bell is able to move in and out, and the bell is able to hit the flywheel enough that it can cause the flywheel to stop, your engine flames out. So we will go ahead and add a 0.2 millimeter shim. Then we'll put the bearing on. And perfectly silent. The bell spins free, but again, the test would be to hold the engine secure, push in, and make sure, almost kind of rock the bell a little bit, because you want to make sure that with a little bit of force, the bell is not touching the flywheel pin or the flywheel. And it's not. So you can see there's a bit of exposed crankshaft. So we're going to need to fill that in to be able to get the proper shimming. But before I do that, I'm going to show you what it looks like if this is shimmed too loose. So we'll go ahead, put the screw in the crankshaft, and then you can see the end play here is pretty close to a 0.5 millimeter. That's too much. You don't want the bell rocking around that much, but I would prefer to have slightly too much end play than it being too tight, because when it's really on the tight side, everything gets hot, it expands, it can cause the clutch to kind of bind up. But this is too much slop. So you don't want it with that much end play. Let me take an extra shim here. Now I'm going to show you what it looks like when there is not enough end play and explain what that can cause in terms of problems when running. So we go ahead, tighten that down, and then now you can see the bell doesn't spin as free as it should. There's actually 0 end play. So again, when everything gets hot, it's going to put even more pressure on those bearings, and it can potentially cause the engine to flame out. So you need to have some end play. Again, you don't want too much, and you also don't want too little. So we'll go ahead, pull the screw off one more time, and we are going to remove one of those 0.2 millimeter shims. Make sure we got one there on the screw. So on the outside, we're going to go with 2 0.2 millimeter shims. Go ahead and lock that down. Now you can see the bell spins really free. When you tilt the engine back, the bell is not touching the flywheel or the flywheel pins. And we have just a little bit of end play. So I like to try to have about 0.2 of a millimeter of end play. So basically the thickness of one of these 0.2 millimeter clutch shims is what I feel is the ideal amount of end play. That way, if any dust gets in there, or as the clutch starts to wear, if there's any debris from the clutch, you have just that little bit of kind of safety so that it does not cause the clutch to bind up or create a problem. And that should keep your engine, your clutch running consistent. Obviously, you need to check and make sure that you have a good quality clutch bearing. Clutch bearings are one of the things on a nitro car that you need to change frequently. A lot of times you'll check and everything spins free, but especially before a long main event, I like to just throw in a set of clutch bearings just to be safe, because if your clutch isn't working properly, your engine's also not going to run properly. So that's how I shim the clutch on my OS Speed B21 Adam Drake 3 engine using the ProTech 4-shoe clutch. But again, you can use these tips and method for shimming your clutch for any nitro engine and with any style clutch for your nitro engine.